we had a little vote a little bit ago about what specific topic we're going to talk about. And you guys voted on how to create and maintain a language learning habit or study schedule. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. Like I mentioned, this is the very first masterclass, but we do hope to host more in the future if you all like this type of event. So let us know your feedback. And then if you guys do like it, you guys can have the opportunity to host one too. We'll be opening up applications for those who are interested. So yeah, let's jump right into it. We got a lot to cover today. All right. Here's what we're going to be talking about today. We got a lot of different topics. Yeah. Oh, also, shout out to Kawa for making this presentation. It's so beautiful. I love it. All right. So first, the number one best way of maintaining study habits, in my personal opinion, is motivation. Because for this, you'll want to be able to find the source of your motivation. You'll want to go all the way back to the first step of the process, which is picking a language. Starting on the right foot by picking a language you're motivated to learn is the most important thing, in my opinion. And I mean, any reason is valid. So think about why you're motivated to learn this language, whether it's for travel or job prospects, media, education, whatever. For me, I used to study Korean. I was about like 8 months and I was taking Spanish in school, so I had to stop to focus on that, of course. But my primary motivation was Korean media, like music and shows. I wanted to be able to understand them without the subtitles and the language or the cultural related jokes that were being said. Because there's a lot of, in variety shows, there's like a lot of puns with the language. And so I wanted to understand those. And a plus for me was that since I was engaging in content in Korean anyway, I was able to pick up things here and there, which helped me stay motivated each day to learn more and immerse myself in the language since I was enjoying myself. As for the language itself, I really liked learning a language that didn't have a Latin alphabet, and the way that the grammar worked made just perfect sense to my brain. And having a lot of motivation also makes the learning process easier in general. For example, I personally didn't think that during my little bit of studying Korean, I didn't think it was super difficult when I was learning it, but it is considered generally a hard language for native English speakers to learn. Whereas on the other hand, I learned Spanish in school, like throughout high school and then 1 year in college. And for that one, there were just some grammatical stuff in my brain. I was like, I'll get it eventually. I'll figure it out eventually. So, yeah, definitely learning a language versus like whether you're learning it in school, whether you're picking it up on your own interest or anything like that. Having a lot of motivation just made the learning process easier. Next, and also, any reason is valid. So, like I mentioned before, some people think like, it has to benefit your future. It has to be useful. Just do something that makes you happy, y'all. Next, we are going to do some activities throughout this masterclass. So hopefully you can share if you would like. However, we're just going to be doing some activities. And if you don't want to write anything down, you just want to watch, feel free to just brainstorm this while we're going along here. So now we're going to do a brief reflection activity, and you only need to share if you want to, like I mentioned. You can type your answers in the chat. We're not going to have people talk just because I think this is going to be long, and I feel like if we kind of do a round robin thing, it's going to crank this into like 3 hours. So I don't want to keep you guys here that long, but if you want to say something in the chat, totally feel free. If not, you can just brainstorm. So what are your motivations for learning your target language? Anyone have anything? Like I mentioned before, it can be literally anything. And secondary question, how can you use those motivations to your advantage? Like I mentioned with the Korean thing, I really enjoyed the TV shows and I was able to learn about that cultural aspect really early on. Also with the different subtitles and stuff like that. I was able to, practice the language, stuff like that. So yeah, think about this for a couple of minutes. Feel free to type in the chat if you would like to share, of course. Or, if nobody says anything, I'll just keep on talking. All right. First stuff coming in. Thank you guys so much. First, to immerse yourself, watching videos with the target language for sure. 100%. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Being able to watch videos in your target language helps so many reasons, and especially if there's subtitles too. Well, I should say if the subtitles actually match what's being said. Second one, definitely agree with that. And that also reminds me of another point. I remember a little bit ago, as someone who likes K-pop, stuff like that, there was definitely a period of time, and honestly, there still kind of is, where people were kind of like, if you learn Korean to because of K-pop, it's just like cringe or kind of like the weebs in anime and stuff like that. I mean, I think that the rhetoric around that's kind of shifting, but also it's like they're still gonna know another language, y'all. It doesn't matter how they learned it. They're still bilingual, and that's still awesome. So yeah, literally any reason is valid. Interest of the country, general usefulness for sure. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I continued with Spanish. Hobbies, yes. I definitely know that a majority of the people here are learning languages as a hobby, which is so awesome. Keeps your brain moving. And just the feeling of being able to, work through everything, stuff like that, super awesome. Being multilingual, yeah, can be super beneficial. Language learning process. Oh, Judah, you may be one of the few. Yeah, I simply feel smarter for sure. Yeah, 100%. Hey, Judah, I know so many people who are like, if I could download a language to my brain, I would. Let me see, Netflix. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, honestly, yeah, Netflix is super awesome. I mean, if you can find subtitles that actually match what's being said, then it's awesome. Let me see. Oh, for jobs, that's awesome. Also, culture. I did see you were learning Finnish, actually, Sendre. I thought that was super cool. Oh, that's super cool, So. That is one of the things that I wish that we had in the US. I will say the fact that you could just drive 20 minutes and everyone's speaking another language. No, we don't have that here, unfortunately. We have little pockets, but not much. Yeah, that is very true. All right. Well, I love this. I love this conversation we're having. All right. I blocked out 5 minutes for this, and I've been talking for longer than 5 minutes on this slide. So let's keep going. Now that we have our language and our reason for learning, no matter what it is, let's talk about why people lose motivation. Unfortunately, it is highly likely that you will eventually lose motivation to learn. Not totally. Maybe it's only, you have those down days. I'm tired, stuff like that. Totally understandable. If you're working, if you're going to school, if you're just doing a lot of other stuff, you got a busy life, it can be hard to balance language learning and, just doing your life stuff. So whether it's right off the bat because you wanted to learn a language and you got discouraged because of the alphabet, you're further along in your journey and are, stuck at the quote unquote intermediate plateau, or something else. But aside from the physicalities of the language itself, like, the alphabet or the pronunciation, let's talk about some, non-physical aspects as well. So, number 1, not having a realistic mindset. And I think that one of the reasons, also, I will say this isn't like most to least. This was just whatever showed up in my head. So, when I was writing this, one of the reasons why people lose motivation is because they feel that they're not progressing at the speed that they want. This could be because, yes, motivation is not linear and learning is not linear. That is so true. That is so true. Some days you're like, let's tackle the world. Some days you're like, I just want to stay in bed. That's just how it is. That's just how humans are. That's how we got to be. This could be you have unrealistic expectations of how quickly you can learn another language, or maybe you're not, studying efficiently, you're using inefficient resources, or sometimes I see some people and they're like, I'm just going to watch Netflix. Or, I don't want to, poke at the weebs again, but I'm just going to watch anime and I'm going to become fluent in the language. I'm going to pick it up like I was a kid. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. I wish. I think having a realistic mindset from the beginning of language learning is super important, especially for those who this may be the first language that they're learning. Unfortunately, you're not going to become fluent overnight. You got to keep in mind that usually it will take years to become fluent in another language. Every so often I see someone join here and say this, or they'll post on like Reddit or whatever. What is the fastest way to learn X language? Or what is the easiest language to learn? Sort of thing. Like, well, I will say, if you're a native English speaker, that's going to be like Afrikaans or Frisian, which I feel like if people are asking that question, they want it to be like something that's more, widely spoken, quote unquote. While the concept of being fluent in another language is super exciting, you also have to realize that you will have to put in the work to achieve fluency no matter what language you decide to learn. It's important to have a strong start, like we mentioned, before learning and have a handful of reasons for learning that language as opposed to, because it's easy or because it's fast, that sort of thing. We can make the process of learning more fun, but it is also important to have realistic expectations for becoming fluent. This chart on the side, on the right side, I love this chart. It is the chart from the Foreign Service Institute in the US of approximately how many hours you have to study that language to be considered fluent in it. And it's from the perspective of a native English speaker. And that's the only language they speak, I will say. If you know a Romance language, if you know Spanish, Portuguese is going to come very easy to you. It may not take those couple years, but if it does, that's okay too. So yeah, just taking a look here, like I mentioned, Afrikaans being that number one, French, Spanish, stuff like that. German chilling, only one in category 2. We got some category 3, category 4, category 5. And what I kind of noticed is that sometimes people want to jump into learning a category 5 language. That's awesome. Korean was the first language that I self-studied. Sometimes it's just they don't realize, it may take you, 1,200 hours. To explain the chart a little bit more, for example, if you study 1 hour a day, it says that you will reach fluency in Spanish in 575 to 600 days, which is, a little more than a year and a half. And of course, that assumes you're studying, first off, that assumes you're studying an hour a day. If you only study 30 minutes a day, it's, more than that. And that you're of the utmost productivity, which is, that's not going to happen every day. And, sometimes you're busy. So more than likely, your journey will take a little bit longer than that. And that's totally okay. That's just how it is. And while these big numbers for some people can be a little discouraging, some people may find it motivating, especially for the languages that are, the furthest away from English at the bottom over there. It's really good to keep them in mind and don't expect fluency after just a couple weeks or months, especially because there's those influencers out there, like those YouTubers and stuff like that. How to learn Italian in 1 week and be fluent. Don't sell me your stuff. Come on, get out of here. Plus, just because the FSI, the people who made this chart, say that a language specifically on here is difficult, doesn't mean that it will be difficult for you. It also assumes that a whole lot of study time is done outside of class, and that's the class time. I totally agree. It's not just, you're showing up to class and you're going to become fluent from just taking the class. You got to immerse it, bring it into your world. I see a lot of people who are like, they natively speak English and they're like, I want to learn a language. I really want to learn Japanese, but I think that's going to be too hard to start off. So I'll learn Spanish and then Japanese. If your motivation for learning Spanish is just the prerequisite for learning Japanese, you're not really going to have much motivation. Just jump to Japanese, man. Like, it may be a little difficult, may take a little bit more time, but it's something you're truly passionate about. Number 2, diving into native level resources. So while it is exciting to jump into trying to immerse in native level content right from the beginning, it will be very discouraging because, you won't be able to understand anything. And it'll seem like, everyone's speaking so quickly that you'll never be able to understand anything. It's super overwhelming. While using native level resources at the beginning is good to get used to how the language sounds, just keep in mind that you will not understand everything. Also, Sendray, I did see your comment about comprehensible input. It is not a magic potion to becoming fluent. We'll keep going, and then I'll talk about that a little bit after we talk about what this even is. Comprehensible input is a language learning technique that involves exposing students to a language that is slightly above their current level, but is still understandable. As a beginner student, you shouldn't immediately be jumping to native level content with the intent of understanding everything. Or, you'll immerse yourself so much that you'll learn the language like how babies do. Please do not do this. This will not work. Instead, you should start off watching kids shows in your target language like Peppa Pig, which I looked this up, has been translated into 30 different languages. That's pretty cool. Also, a lot of Disney movies on Disney+. Reading children's books, like The Little Prince, I see that one's pretty popular, which has been translated into around 594 languages and dialects. So even if you're learning something super small, The Little Prince has your back. But as you progress through your language studies, you'll want to keep finding new resources to match your current language level. And it keeps it interesting as well with the changing of resources. Maybe your interests change a little bit. You happen to stumble across something. You're like, oh, wow, I didn't know about this before. Let's learn about this. But yeah, going back to what Sendray said, I'll just read the comment. That's why I have my doubts about the comprehensible input method, because they make it sound like just listening to content that is comprehensible is going to drill the language in the brain. It is a powerful tool, but not the magical thing that they make it appear like. Totally agree. Keep in mind that you're going to need a mix of strategies. Not everything is going to stick. Being able to find a mix of resources will really help. All right, next up. Next reason. Number 3, not knowing how to learn a language. So the first time you start self-studying a language will always be the most difficult. Always, always, always. And even if you're fluent in multiple languages, not only are you trying to just learn the language itself, but you also have to learn how to learn a language at the same time. What learning methods that are best for you, your schedule, and your brain. So when people are starting off, one thing I like to recommend is learning what your learning style is. This is whether you're an auditory learner, visual, tactile, etc. In reality, there is no scientific, if you study more with this learning style, then you'll do better. However, I think it can be used as a great starting point to determine what types of resources work the best for you if you don't know. Obviously, you can experiment, but if you've never learned a language before, this can be a good start. Or maybe it gives you some ideas that you didn't think of before. Maybe I know for me, I'm more of a visual person and I learned this because originally I was watching YouTube lessons. I don't know, maybe I'm just old fashioned. I just like the textbook and paper, man. I think that I'm just more of a tactile person. Like, yeah, you can write notes and stuff like that, but just having the physical textbook there, I don't know. It's just built different. What can I say? But yeah, for example, I'm a tactile person, so my brain works best with physically taking notes with a notebook and pencil. I also do like physical textbooks because I can feel like I'm focusing more with it physically being there. A more auditory learner, for example, may find more use with video lessons on YouTube as opposed to reading from a textbook because they can hear someone explain the lessons to them. Next, we are going to find our learning styles. It's like, this is my favorite quiz. Not ever, I will say. Our language quiz is my favorite quiz ever. Take our language quiz on our website, languagecafe.world. But anyway, we have our quiz here. Feel free to take it. You don't want to. Again, no big deal if you already know your learning style. Also, we're going to release version 2 of the quiz today. We added 20 new languages. We have some more niche languages. Very excited about it. We're going to go over these real quick. So if you are an auditory learner, you like learning by hearing and listening. You understand and remember things you have heard. My bad. You store information by how it sounds and has an easier time understanding spoken instructions than written ones. You often learn by reading out loud because you must hear or speak it to know it. Maybe you hum to yourself if you're bored. People may think that you're not paying attention even though you are hearing and understanding things being said. Let's see. Auditory learners, make sure that you can hear well. Using flashcards, but reading them out loud. Reading stuff out loud, yeah. This is just reading stuff out loud. Also, YouTube video lessons. I feel like for auditory people, listening to stuff, listening to a class lecture, listening to a YouTube lecture on a language, oh yeah, this would be your jam. Visual. If you are a visual learner, you learn by reading or seeing pictures. You understand and remember things by sight. Usually close your eyes to visualize something, maybe a little bit more organized, and you will find something to watch if you become bored. You may have difficulty with spoken directions and be easily distracted by sounds, attracted to color and spoken language like stories, rich in imagery. Here are some things that visual learners like to do to learn better. Sit near the classroom, make sure your eyes are good, flashcards, visualize things. I feel like mind palaces. I'm not sure if you guys know what a mind palace is, but I can't do that because I can't visualize in my head. So whoever can make a mind palace, you get 100 points. I wish I could. It sounds cool. I like the term. I always imagine, quote unquote, a physical palace. Writing down keywords, color code things, All right, tactile. You learn by touching and doing. Remember things, the physical movement, your hands-on learner. This is my realm, man. Writing those notes with those hand and that pencil. Oh yeah, dog. Take things apart. Yeah, very true. Participate in activities that are like, physical touch activities where you're touching, building, moving, drawing, hands-on activities, stuff like that. Physical flashcards. Let's keep going. None of these fit. Liam, I will say there actually are 4 learning styles. Maybe the 4th one is you. Yeah, kinesthetic. Act out events. May have a difficult time sitting still, need frequent breaks during heavy studying periods. Maybe that's you, Liam. Oh, wait. Okay, visual prefers images and graphs. Auditory, learn by listening. Kinesthetic, learn by doing. And then there's the read and write learners. That's kind of a boring name. Yeah, reading and writing is writing stuff down. Kinesthetic is incorporating body movement. First steps for learning a language. Start. I always like to recommend that people find a textbook or a set of online lessons to learn from. This eliminates having to scrounge up individual videos for each grammatical concept, and the lessons typically build off of each other nicely. I will take a couple seconds to talk about my favorite learning resource, Korean from Zero. If you know, you know. That's right. All right, so this book, it's super awesome. Honestly, I wish they had a Korean Zero for every language. I'll be real. I'll pull it up, actually. Korean from Zero. This website is awesome if you're learning Korean, but if you're not, obviously, just find something that looks very similar to this. They start off the lesson, they have some vocab, learning some basic stuff. Next, more new words, new adjectives, new verbs, stuff like that. I realize I'm just clicking the next unit. Where do I get to the lesson stuff? Conjugation basics. Here we go. Okay, so they have the vocab, and then they have very awesome freaking tables, and they just get right into it, man. You got to learn and experiment for yourself. That quiz, obviously, it is not the key to the world, is not the key to fluency. It eliminates having to scrounge up individual videos for each grammatical concept, and the lessons build off each other nicely. Typically, the vocabulary that is presented in the lessons is level appropriate, like learning dog and cat as a beginner, as opposed to evaluation and pediatrics and all those other hard words that you're not going to probably ever need. And the level of vocabulary will increase as you learn more. Also, it makes making a study schedule that much easier because you can just do one lesson a day. Another reason is the occasional expectation that you can learn from one resource only. There is no one single resource for any language that make you fluent from A0 to C2. You just cannot encapsulate an entire language in a series of lessons. That's just how it is. Due to this, it is important to take time to find a variety of resources that can help you out as you progress through each stage. Textbook series can help build a good foundation, and sometimes they continue into the more intermediate and advanced levels, but that's not necessarily always a guarantee. Next, not finding efficient resources. The next important thing is to find efficient resources like I mentioned earlier and showed earlier. If you don't have resources that will teach you different things in a direct way where you feel like you're actually making progress, you will lose motivation. I will use Duolingo as an example. So sorry to the Duolingo stands. It is known for its funny sentences, but the lessons themselves don't explain grammar concepts, and they repeat vocabulary so that it is very difficult to feel like you are making progress and maybe feel demotivated because of that. I see a lot of people, they're like, I have X numbered day streak on Duolingo, and I only do the bare minimum every day. I just care about maintaining my streak. Kind of at that level of demotivation, but like you still are doing stuff each day. But I guess as a real world example, my mom is, well, at the time she was, I don't know if she's still doing it now, but my mom is/was learning, quote unquote, Spanish on Duolingo. And after 40 days, 40, she had not learned what los is. And I had to teach her. What los is. And for those who don't know, basically Spanish it's a gendered language. And so it's masculine and feminine. So if we say a masculine is like el gato, the cat. And so you can say the cat. The cats, plural, los gatos. And so los is basically a plural article. And she had learned that after 40 days, 40. I'm like, I would get so demotivated after that. And with learning from a textbook, you'd honestly learn that after like a couple days. Basically, in my opinion, knowing the grammar and vocabulary of a language is the basis of being able to improve your other language skills, reading, writing, speaking, listening. It is important to have good resources to learn grammar, like a textbook or some written online lessons, and then find different resources for each of the 4 aspects of language learner. We will talk about this more later, but I will say one thing that I did when studying Korean was that I would cover 1 lesson per day. It was a great way to measure my progress in lessons or books completed, and I knew that I was learning in an efficient way because the grammar information was presented very clearly to me in a way that was easy to digest. For the resources for the 4 aspects of language learning, try to have them pertain to your motivation for learning the language so you're learning relevant things you're interested in. For example, since I wanted to focus on Korean media and slang to understand variety shows and read Korean forum articles about pop culture, I would, do that. Of course, at first, I could only understand a handful of words, but it was content I was interested in learning more about, so I felt motivated since I had a connection to the material. Not setting goals. Some people have an easier time setting goals when they're learning a language because they have a certain date in mind when they have to achieve a certain language level. This could be that they know they want to pass a certain proficiency test, which is occurring on a certain date, or they have a trip scheduled somewhere that speaks the language that they're trying to learn, so they know that they want to have basic conversational skills by then. However, from what I've seen, most of us are learning for fun and may not have any test or travel plans. This isn't necessarily a bad thing at all, but it can be difficult to establish goals because you don't really know what you're aiming for except general fluency. It's like, okay, I want to learn Spanish. How, when, where? You got the why. But so let's talk about goals. Let's talk about the different types of goals. And let's talk about how to set goals. Setting goals allows you to eliminate the vagueness in your studies. It also helps you work towards something, so you can feel like you're accomplishing something when you achieve that goal. Let's go over the difference between long-term and short-term goals. Just gets you in the mindset of creating a schedule for yourself, which is what we're going to talk about later. If you're just kind of working towards the vague goal of fluency, And also that's the thing, like fluency isn't defined. Fluency means that you have these requirements and you do this. If you're just kind of going towards the vague goal of fluency, for some people that may be a little bit demotivating because it's like, how do I know when I've hit fluency? You're not going to know. Like, I mean, I've been studying Spanish for like 6 years and I wouldn't call myself fluent. I'm like, someone's going to ask you where the bus is and I'm going to be like, oh, I don't know. Can you repeat that? But some people, they're like, I want to take the JLPT next year. All right, I got a year. Let's freaking break this down and let's get going. We're going to talk about goal setting. If this works for you, awesome. If it doesn't, that's totally fine. Don't worry, I won't be offended. Let me see. All right. Long-term goals are ones that require more time to plan. They can also be more vague, which is what we'll be working to combat. Some examples include wanting to pass the JLPT 1 in 5 years. For those who don't know, that's the Japanese proficiency exam. Wanting to reach B1 in 3 years in Spanish, reading some classics in their original language, reading or watching stuff in the language. Short-term goals are ones that have more specific details, like learning 50 new vocabulary words a week. Don't do this, by the way. I tried it once. Don't do it. Don't do 50. Studying your target language for 1 hour each day, finishing a beginner's course in 3 months, stuff like that. So when making your study schedule, you'll basically have a bunch of short-term goals that make up your long-term goals. For this, we're going to talk about SMART goals. Some people know what SMART goals are. Some people may be rolling their eyes at SMART goals, but I think it's a good place to start. So let's do it. In order to create shorter-term goals, you'll want to use SMART goals. SMART is an acronym that stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Specific, setting a clear and precise goal. Measurable, define how you'll measure progress. Achievable, ensure the goal is realistic based on your current ability and available time. Relevant, make sure the goal aligns with your broader language learning objectives. And time-bound, set a deadline for achieving the goal. We are going to talk about that. So here is an example of a SMART goal. Specific, set a clear and precise goal. I want to learn 100 new vocabulary words in French related to daily conversation. Measurable, define how you'll measure progress. I will track my progress by learning 10 new words each week and testing myself at the end of each week. Test. Could be very light test, just doing the Anki deck. Achievable. Ensure the goal is realistic based on your current ability and available time. Learning 10 words per week is achievable by dedicating 20 minutes a day to studying using flashcards and apps. Relevant. Make sure that the goal aligns with your broader language learning objectives. Expanding my vocabulary will help me better understand and communicate in everyday French conversations, which is my primary goal. And time-bound. I will learn 100 vocabulary words within 10 weeks. I was just going for a nice easy number. 100 in 10 weeks. So the final SMART goal, I will learn 100 new vocabulary words in French related to daily conversation by studying 10 new words each week for 20 minutes a day, testing myself weekly, and completing the goal within 10 weeks. Honestly, Lorelai, for the vocab stuff, it really depends on you. I wanted to see how much I could do one time, and I tried 50 words a day for a week. Oh, it was terrible. Oh, Lord, don't do 50. I think 5 to 10 a day, it really depends on you. If you have the dedicated time to be able to learn a language, and you can do 10 words a day, 20 words a day, that's awesome, but just make sure you don't forget them. Next, we are going to do some goal setting. Let's make some goals together, guys. On this beautiful article that Kawa wrote, she made an even better worksheet, and I am going to attempt to copy it so you guys can just take a look at it. Feel free to use it or just brainstorm. But let's make a SMART goal together. I told myself, learn Spanish for work, read a graded book. Great one, great one. B2 level. How are you going to define B2, Judah? Are you going to take the JLPT and be like, this equals this? Okay, I will take the JLPT. This means that I'm B2. How do you want to measure being B2? I know the CFR levels, they kind of just have vague stuff that you can do. And so it's difficult. All the grammatical rules of German within 5 weeks. Jeez. Ambitious. These are some good stuff. Learn enough Korean to free watch Run BTS. So real. Okay, so let's say for this one, these are awesome long-term goals, let me say. Achieving B2, not really a short-term thing. Reading a graded book, I guess, it depends on what level, maybe A1. We could work up to that. But for this one, we're going to want to do overarching goals. These are great overarching goals. We can take learning Spanish for work, for example. I saw Delilah got that one out first. Overarching goal, learning Spanish for work. That's awesome. Smaller goals. What would be involved in learning Spanish for work? Finding a textbook, learning vocab. How do we want to go about doing that? Where am I getting the vocab from? Where am I getting the textbook from? Stuff like that. A very good long-term goal. We'll want to break that down. Learning Spanish for work, you probably need B2 proficiency. For setting specific goals, Chami, I want to finish my Korean stories book by the end of January. Awesome goal. Awesome goal. Very short term. So yeah, I guess we can start off with that one. Korean stories book, does it have like chapters in it? Does it have a number of pages? What do you want to use from the book? Are you just trying to read it? Are you trying to just get vocab from it? So we'll take that as an example. Reading a book. When you're making your SMART goals, make sure that they're a little bit more specific. We're talking about overarching goals. Everyone gave some great ideas. 183 pages. Oh, wow. I'm trying to improve my reading comprehension and learn new vocab. That's awesome. I feel like that's also a great way you get to learn some vocab. So I want to finish this one specific book that I have as a goal by the end of January. That's awesome. Time bound. End of January 31, I think. 30. However many days January has. So finishing the book. How will you measure your progress, Chami? Are we doing number of pages? I assume. That is how book works after all. Do you want to learn a certain number of words? Easier to more difficult. Easier pages, you can read several pages in a day. Beginner word. Chami already freaking got this down, guys. For the beginner ones, it's 5 pages a day, testing myself for comprehension. Chami is the SMART goal queen. This is awesome. Yeah, this is exactly how you do it. Setting a clear and precise goal. Finish the Korean book by end of January. Measurable. Measure progress. Finish the book. Make sure it's achievable. Relevant. It's a Korean book. We're learning Korean. And time bound. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's exactly how you do it. That's awesome. Thank you so much for that. All right. Creating a study schedule. Don't worry. We're not going to go crazy in depth, I should say. So now that we have our long-term and short-term goals, we'll want to put this into practice. This will be different for everyone based on how long you want to study, /frequency of studying, /efficiency of studying. And efficiency of studying, I know, sounds a little bit spooky, but it basically means that you're actively learning and are focused throughout that time that you're studying, as opposed to just learning for 10 minutes and then getting distracted by TikTok for the next 50 minutes. And then you're like, oh, my hour is done. Okay, I'm good. For me personally, having a textbook with grammar lessons really set a good pace for me because, I would do 1 lesson a day minimum along with other things if I felt up to it. A book I showed earlier. We are going to be creating a study schedule using long-term and short-term goals. And we'll go with the assumption that you do have some sort of textbook, YouTube video playlist, like you have some sort of lessons built out in front of you. It's not going to be scrounging around and being like, okay, I have to find a video on this thing. I have to find a video on this thing. Stuff like that. Some sort of YouTube playlist has been curated for you. First, we'll determine how long you'll be actively studying each day. I'm just going to go off based off of my previous experiences for all of the examples. Feel free to do whatever you want. So we'll go with 1 hour a day. That is what I used to do for Korean. See how many lessons your textbook has. Determine how many lessons you'll do in X amount of time. 1 lesson a day. That works for me. So you'll be able to complete your textbook in 1 month, assuming it has 30 chapters. Sometimes for me, I would complete a lesson in earlier than 1 hour. So also keep in mind, what do you want to do for that rest of the hour, if that's the case? If you choose that your studying is going to be 1 hour a day, you're like, I want to do the textbook every day. Say you finish the textbook in 20 minutes as a super short lesson. What are you going to do for those other 40? Podcasts? Yeah. Read an article in a target language? Yes. Perfect. Awesome. My point, though, is for me, I would finish a lesson early and then I would be like, well, shoot, now I got to figure out what I got to do. And then, it takes you 10 minutes. You're like, do I want to listen to music today? Do I want to watch a TV show today? Oh, shoot, I don't have that resource, but I want to do that thing. Just having a lot of things on the back burner and being like, okay, finish the lesson early today. And so this is where your other resources for the 4 different aspects of language learning will come into play. So use one of those. And you can even mix it up. You can space it out so that you're rotating between your listening, reading, writing, and speaking resources. For example, Monday is lesson in listening. Tuesday is lesson in reading. Wednesday is lesson in the other two. Well, the other one. And then the Thursday one is the fourth one. You always want to have something on the back burner. Because I know for me personally, I'll kind of like hem-haw around and be like, well, I could do reading today. And that's fine if you change your mind. But just remember two things. One, you can't always be in a reading mood every day, y'all. Sometimes you gotta practice speaking. I swear, I promise. Sometimes you gotta practice speaking. This is a note to myself too. Reading is just so much easier to practice. Creating the study schedule is the easiest part, and actually following through is more difficult. Keeping track of progress. We are in the home stretch, y'all. One of the biggest motivators in continuing your progress for some people is seeing how far you've come. That is why keeping track of your progress and how much you've studied is super beneficial. You can be as meticulous with this as you'd like. I'll give a couple examples of things that people like to use. Number 1, Forest. The Forest Studying Tracker app helps users stay focused, manage time productively by planting virtual trees. You can set a timer for a task, and during this time, a tree grows in the app. If the user exits the app or gets distracted, the tree withers. Kind of spooky. They're kind of like, stay focused or else this tree dies. Over time, users can build a virtual forest as a visual representation of their focus sessions. To my knowledge, Apple users have to pay $199 upfront to download Forest, but my bad, USD upfront to download Forest, whereas apparently freaking Android users can download a free version of Forest with the option to upgrade to the Pro version for $199. Hello? Where is this iPhone disrespect? Why is this here? Hello? Forest is an app. It's like an iPhone app or an Android app. Basically, you can plant virtual trees. And so I've never used it before, but from my understanding, people love it. And so basically you pick a tree, and I think a tree is allocated to a certain amount of time. It has a desktop version as a browser extension. Or you can set the timer or have it count up. And move on to the next one. This one, I believe it's originally a Korean app, but it's called Yolpumta. And it is a time tracking app designed to help users stay focused and motivated while studying or working. It allows users to set timers for specific tasks and log the time spent on each activity. But the app features a daily study streak system, which encourages consistency and offers insights into daily, weekly, and monthly progress. You can also join study groups to share your progress and stay accountable. I'll show you guys the pictures on this one. This one, pretty cool. This is what a study group looks like, or I should say this is what this one looks like. And you can say, okay, like here are my tasks. And then here's like, the amount of time. It's a timer. It counts up, I'm pretty sure. And this one, you can do study groups, 455 members in the study group. Oh yeah, everyone's popping off this stuff. Then you can get little graphics. And there are like cute little things that you can do too and stuff like that. I'll put this one in the chat as well. Or YPT. My apologies. YPT. Maybe notice that. Pretty cool stuff. And then they have like little pictures that you can share. And I don't know why I don't have one of those. But yeah, this is basically what it looks like. I think this one's a pretty cool one. But next up to bat, we got Notion. With Notion, users can create custom pages to organize vocabulary lists, grammar notes, resources. With databases, you can track new words or phrases, set up goals, monitor your progress with checklists, blah, blah, blah. You can create flashcards, link multimedia content like videos or audio for pronunciation, and schedule study sessions with integrated calendars. And it can be pretty overwhelming if you just start a new page from scratch. So I would recommend looking up Notion language learning templates on Notion. As you can see, there's a lot of free ones on here. So many free ones. Next up, if you're like, I don't want Notion, I don't want the fancy Notion, I don't want the fancy YPT, and I don't want the fancy Forest, I don't want to spend any money. Spreadsheet. Hello. Excel. We can go back to the basics here. Some people just work really well with checklists. You can track your studies on Google Sheets or Microsoft Excel. This one was a pretty good one. Let's see, 1/1/2020. Yeah, Excel can also get mad detailed. Did we do our flashcards? Did we do our videos, our podcasts, our film? Just doing check marks. Sometimes that works for people too. And if you're not sure where to start making one of these, there are a ton of YouTube videos about it and templates online. This one specifically, I found on a Reddit post, how to study when you're blank. So making a study schedule is easy compared to actually carrying it out. Oh yeah. Sorry. Calling everyone out, including myself. Some people may have an easy time sticking to schedules that they create, but for the majority of us, things will start getting in the way, whether it's life obligations or maybe you're just not feeling motivated to study and you're like, I'll study tomorrow. Next day comes, I'll study tomorrow. Next day comes, flash forward 4 years. Man, I wish I didn't drop Korean. Here are some tips that will hopefully help you out. Passive versus active learning. So there are 2 different types of learning that you can employ based on your energy and busyness levels for the day. Passive learning involves absorbing information without direct engagement, like listening to conversations or watching shows in the target language. It helps familiarize learners with the sounds, rhythm, and flow of the language, and can improve listening comprehension and vocabulary exposure. However, it lacks interaction, so learners may not fully internalize or use the language effectively. So I give some examples down here. So passive learning is going to be, watching a TV show, listening to a podcast, listening to music, stuff like that. Watching music videos, watching BTS music videos. Oh yeah, passive learning. You're getting familiar with the sounds of the language. There's not really a physical thing that will help it stick in your head. Active learning, on the other hand, requires direct engagement, such as speaking, writing, practicing grammar exercises. This approach involves producing the language, which enforces retention and improves fluency. Active learning is more effective for mastering skills as it forces learners to actively recall and apply what they've learned. And there were some times when I was studying Korean when I was so tired after I came home from work that I just wanted to take a nap or relax. However, I knew that if I didn't do a daily lesson as soon as I got home, I would just push it off until I didn't do it at all. Because of that, I would do one lesson, which only took about 20 to 30 minutes with my practice and stuff like that. But then for the rest of the study block, I would engage with something more passive, like, listening to music in Korean, watching my favorite variety shows, stuff like that. For people who have a busier schedule and may not be able to study every day, I'd recommend filling your day with passive learning. For example, listening to a podcast in your target language while you're driving or commuting to work, listening to music in your target language while you're exercising. Yeah, you play games to turn the passive vocab. I totally agree. When it's hard to do active learning, we do passive learning, or we do both each day with different amounts. Honestly, I would say, I hate to do a cop-out, it's up to you, but it is also up to you. Okay, yeah, wait, Sandra just said something awesome. Let me address that, and then I'll come back because they're related. Lowest hanging fruit method, when I come back from work, basically you pick the most low energy activity, do it, and call it a day. However, it can hype you to do more. And the next thing you know, you complete a study lesson because the reward from the low energy activity motivated you to reach out for more. I totally agree with that. I feel like the most difficult thing is literally just starting. Like, just start. I know for me, Kyle and I were talking about this yesterday. It is so difficult sometimes to just start. Lowest hanging fruit, passive learning. I'm going to listen to one song in Korean. Okay, I did that. Okay, I'll listen to another one. Okay, that's cool. Okay. Oh, I wonder what this means. Going back to Sammy's question, it really depends how you're feeling, what you want to do. Take your breaks, y'all. I would rather take a 10-minute break from studying or maybe take a scheduled day off than getting completely burnt out and being like, I don't want to do this anymore. Take care of yourself. 30-minute naps. Hey, that's what I'm going to be doing after this. Best case scenario, we would only have active learning. That's actually a really good question. Let me think about that. I'm curious what other people think, because I feel like I'm kind of stumped. Passive learning fills in some of the vague, bushy bits that are more subconscious. Yeah, how we learned our native language, talking to people. Did we blend active and passive as kids? I guess we did. Yeah, that is very true. Then again, I wouldn't call a 5 or 6-year-old fluent in a language. I may lean towards active learning being a bit more important. Gamifying language learning means turning your study routine into a fun and rewarding experience. You can set personal challenges like learning 10 new words a day or completing a speaking task and reward yourself with points or small prizes. A good example of this is this YouTube channel. I happened to see this person on Instagram, and then I somehow found it. This girl, she does daily vlogs about this point system that she uses that could be helpful for those interested in this method. Basically, it's like if she's doing something that's productive or she's doing homework, stuff like that, you get 10 points, maybe more, something like that. And then you're like, okay, I want to buy a big thing. Like I want to buy a new computer or something like that. But it's like, I want to work towards earning that new computer with my points, quote unquote. Study streaks. If you have used Duolingo before or you use our study streak channel, I'm sure you're familiar with the concept of a streak. If not, a streak refers to the number of consecutive days a user has done a language lesson. If you miss a day, then you'll lose your streak unless you have a streak freeze, quote unquote, which saves your streak. With this in mind, like I mentioned, we have the streak feature here in Language Cafe and the Study Streak channel. Where you can log your studies each day and increase your streak. Go try it out. Here are some words from Fadi, who at this point he has a year-long streak, and why he likes this study strategy. Number go up equals brain happy. As soon as I saw him post this, I was like, I need to include this on this presentation. This is so funny. So yeah, some people like the study streak. They say they see number go up and brain equals happy. Even just the simplest things like that. But in fact, the founder of Duolingo did a TED Talk about methods that the company uses to make Duolingo just as addictive as social media to get users to come back to the app each day. The video is 12 minutes long, so we won't be watching it. I don't have anything too crazy insightful. You can just look up Duolingo TED Talk. So I watched this. It was pretty interesting. Basically, Duolingo wants to make people come back to the app as much as possible. So they want to try and gamify it as much as possible. So he gives examples. He talks about the streaks. He talks about the push notifications, how they kind of built their brand, the crazy sentences and stuff like that. I thought it was pretty interesting. When the bird shades you, stuff like that. Or he's like, "Why you didn't come back to the app for a whole year? I'm going to go cry," like that sort of thing. I would say the only downside is that this strategy is great for continuing a streak, but losing it is very devastating and demotivating. Okay, here's a question, everybody. When is the time when someone feels the least motivated to continue studying daily? But the answer is when they've lost their streak or their momentum. I keep eyes on the Study Streak channel. I've noticed users who have lost their streak, we don't see them immediately come back to log it the following day. Sometimes it takes a couple of weeks or months to come back, and sometimes people don't come back at all. Number go to 0 equals brain sad. But the thing is, if you lose your streak, come back. Come back, guys. Get that motivation back. Just because you miss one day, that is okay. Don't even worry about it. Get that motivation and come back. Like to cross it off on the paper and see the streak, 100%. Also, it's just super cool to look back and see what you've learned. Yeah, you can also have an X out of 7 days a week. You don't have to keep a consecutive streak. Satisfaction of physically crossing it off, Chami. Oh yeah. When is the time someone feels the least motivated to continue studying daily? When they lost their streak. And with that, we are done. We made it to the end, guys. We made it to the end. We have come to the end of the first masterclass. Hopefully you all enjoyed. You learned some new tips and tricks to keep yourself motivated. Thank you to the 19 people who have stayed this time. Oh, now there's 20 people. Hopefully you all enjoyed and you learned some new tips to keep yourself motivated. Now, if anyone has any questions, we'll open the floor. Feel free to type it out. And I will answer them, or somebody else will answer them who knows more than me. I am only a facilitator of conversation. Thank you. Thank you. What is going to be the topic of the next masterclass? What do people want to hear about? Do people want to host their own? More importantly, okay, Sammy, do you think it's better to make your own resources or find them pre-made? Ooh, Anki Dex. I actually do have an opinion about this, and I am curious if other people have opinions too. I personally, as a tactile learner, I like making them myself. And I don't use Anki because I don't want to say stupid, but I don't understand it. I'm too smooth brain. I use Quizlet, and I just feel there's always this feeling in the back of my head that I feel like something's going to be wrong if I just blindly follow it. Maybe Anki is different than Quizlet, but I always feel like something's going to be wrong. And so I'm just making it myself. And as a tactile person, sorry to put that fear in people's heads if they never thought about that before. But I'm I don't want to learn the wrong thing and then have to unlearn. But I will say I like making them myself just as a tactile learner because it's that you're typing it out and it's not that you're writing it out, but it's still Homer equals to eat and you're physically writing that out. So it's not just seeing them on the screen. It's that you're, creating them yourself. But I would say, honestly, it's up to you. Does anyone else have any other questions? I'm not seeing anybody type in the chat. So, we will call this a done deal.